of this scandal?
Well, I think, first of all, the government can subpoena any kind of records they want under, again, back to the Patriot Act. And so, under the justification of a terrorist threat, they can obtain any information they believe that they deserve. They have to, of course, the National Security Agency has to go through a typical kind of terrorist court to do so. But again, this is sweeping. As Tim points out, we do want to keep us safe, and we recognize that there are certain powers, police powers, that we want to give to the government. But this is what I would call overreach when any one of you that are listening right now have Verizon phones. And of course, we're only talking about Verizon because The Guardian has published the details of that order. I suspect
and it's in the New York Times.
Yeah, so I suspect that before we're all through, we might find out that AT&T and some others might be. Of course, AT&T has their own scandal. And anyway, the bottom line is they have access to all your records if they want to use them.
But this is, correct me if I'm wrong with what the caller's asking about. This is not Verizon's decision.
No,
this is a court.
Yes.
Aaron, this is a court order. Okay, the federal court is telling Verizon you have to do this. Oh, so they don't have a choice. You see what I'm saying?
Essentially.
I think Aaron's gone. So
yeah.
I don't think you hold Verizon responsible for this. I think you hold Eric Holder and the Attorney General and the Obama administration responsible for this, and I guess the people who voted for the Patriot Act.
I suppose. I love Al Gore's quote. Did you see that one there?
No,
it says, in a digital age, privacy must be a priority. Is it just me, or is the secret blanket surveillance obscenely outrageous? Al Gore's upset with this.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is going to cross over.
New York Times.
New York
look at the way
Times called
it
it secret surveillance.
Washington Post. I mean, they're all. They can't believe this.
You know, Kerby. The caller did made an interesting point. He said, "I think we all ought to boycott Verizon." Okay, Kerby. My question is, suppose we do that. We boycott Verizon, we boycott Time Warner, we boycott AT&T over an issue like this. Then I say to myself, okay, where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go? That is the
where
problem.
Where are you going to go? Yeah, and again, this is not a decision of Verizon's. This is the long arm of the law said to them, you must. Okay, and so it'll be interesting to see what they say. That is Verizon about this situation. But we go on to our next call. John in Pembroke, North Carolina is up next. Hi, John.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, my friend.
I'm retired military, 26 years, and this what's going on with Verizon. Is it just that Verizon was the one that they issued the warrant on, or did they issue it to all the cell carriers on different warrants, and just Verizon has come to light?
All right, let me read again from the New York Times today, the second paragraph, which might answer your question here. And I just heard about this story 3 hours ago myself. Some of you have heard about it maybe last night or earlier this morning. The New York Times says the order, which the court order I'm talking about by a federal judge, signed by Judge Roger Vinson of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court.
Special court. Yeah, it's a special court for...
That sounds even scarier.
Yes, but it exists. Yeah,
the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court in April directs a Verizon Communications subsidiary, Verizon Business Network Services, to turn over, quote, on an ongoing daily basis, end quote, to the National Security Agency all call logs, quote, between the United States and abroad or wholly within the United States, including local telephone calls.
Basically everything.
Everything.
And, of course, we only know about Verizon because this story was broken by The Guardian, which is a British publication. And, Tim, we've been in the business long enough to know that when the first shoe drops, you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. I mean, have we not noticed over the last 3 weeks? And, Ray, you've seen this as well. Every day we learn something else about the IRS scandal. I think over the next couple of days we're going to learn more about this particular scandal, whatever we're going to call it, Phone Gate or National Security Agency Gate or whatever. But I suspect that we just know Verizon today because that's what has been published so far, but we'll probably find out more later on.
I tend to think that we're going to find out that, sure, AT&T and the other companies have been subpoenaed, and so when you've been subpoenaed by the government, you've got to turn the records over. I guess part of the question, Kerby, is once this technology is available, how do you stop the government from using it against you if the wrong people come to power?
John, did we answer your question, my friend?
Yeah, yes, sir. Actually, that was the point I was bringing up, and what it was just like an iceberg.
Yeah.
And that was the iceberg, that is sticking out, and it brings in mind the movie a few years ago of Will Smith, Enemy of the State.
Enemy of the State, yes. You know, what was sort of hypothetical in Enemy of the State is happening right now.
Back to Ray's question.
But Ray, you got a good question, and that is, it seems to me that you've got to get the right people in government. You've got to put the right people in positions, and I think you need to have Congress now exercise some kind of authority. My suggestion is the quickest way to begin to constrain some of this surveillance is use the surveillance against the government, and that is Joseph Farah has suggested that Congress doesn't need to ask the Obama administration for the records for the AP scandal or for the IRS scandal or even for Benghazi, because we have a national security agency that has been monitoring all those phone calls. So just have the Congress go to the NSA and get all those records from them, and all of a sudden when the government now has big government surveillance being used against big government, you're going to start hearing all sorts of people that up until now have been real quiet about the surveillance of the American public getting really upset about surveillance used against the government. So I think that's another way to begin to turn this around. We don't need to wait for the administration to give us all of these documents in these 3 or 4 different scandals. Just use the NSA to find them for us.
You know what? I just, maybe I'm the only one, but I'm just getting this sense that our federal government is out of control.
I think you're right.
You agree? Do you agree with that? Do you have that general sense?
Never seen something like this before. I mean, on the religious liberty issue, I'm having people like Alan Sears and Kelly Shackelford and others saying, we're fighting battles every single day. This isn't just perception, this is reality.
Well, then you read about this IRS.
And then the surveillance, same thing. We're seeing the level of surveillance. Never happened before.
Not only what the IRS was doing to these groups, we heard testimony yesterday, but then you got the IRS out having these conventions where they're spending millions of dollars.
There we go.
Hotel rooms. Some of these guys are getting. I mean,
$4 million at one convention.
That's what I'm saying. It just seems like there's nobody watching for the American taxpayer.
Well, the president's telling me that he's learning about it by watching the news. Just like everybody else.
That's an encouragement.
If I'm the president's advisor and he's going to say, well, I'm just going to go tell him I saw it on the TV news like everybody else, I want to say, don't go do that.
You cannot make this up.
You
cannot make this up.
Don't go do that.
How
all
bad
right,
it's become.
Moving right along here with your calls about surveillance in America. Here's the phone number, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. You're listening to the radio program Surveillance Today on American Family Radio, where we know where you live. No, I'm just kidding. Today's issue is the program Surveillance in America, the topic. Kerby Anderson is our guest. We call this show Fire Away Friday. Kirby's with us once a month to talk about a topic like this, whatever's in the news, whatever's important to you. And today, this is it. And we go next to Ray in Marietta, Texas, and then we'll go to James in Starkville, Mississippi. But Ray, you're up next.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, my friend.
I wanted to bring to your attention, yes, the surveillance in America is detestable to me. I am also retired military, and like the other military people, we sit on things that we know that we don't talk about. But in the 1930s, people need to study Germany, Italy, Japan. They had a thought police in Japan in 1930s. I can prove this because I have a film with it on it, actual film footage where they arrested upwards of 10,000 people a month for something they were thinking. Now that is critical, and that can happen in good old USA.
Okay, Ray, thanks for that, my friend. Appreciate it. Well, he's talking about a different time and era, but he's talking about
Right.
thought police.
That's back to Ray's question, too. With all this new technology, you have the temptation. Certainly, you can go all the way back to Japan or Nazi Germany, and they wanted to have that level of surveillance. But even when they tried to round up people in Nazi Germany for concentration camps, these were index cards in shoeboxes. Now, with a touch of a computer, you can find those kind of people. Richard Nixon certainly had an enemies list, and yet he did not have access to this technology, but that was Article 2 of the impeachment against him, although he resigned before he was impeached. Bill Clinton, we know, wanted to actually surveil people, and I've had Joseph Farah on talking about how we now even have a memo that came from the president. But in every one of those cases, people in the past that had the desire to have this level of surveillance, this kind of big brother technology, they didn't have it. But Ray, now today we have that technology. Just don't get it in the hands of an antichrist. We could be really in trouble, couldn't we?
Well, for a long time, Kerby, certain people, even some well-meaning folks, read the book of Revelation and they said, well, this must be symbolic because it's impossible. I mean, this stuff about the mark on the forehead and the hand and so on, clearly meant to be symbolic because nobody could ever control all the commerce of the world. Well, hello, wake up, look around. The technology is here and is rapidly arriving, rapidly coming. And I guess my concern, or my comment, less my concern, my comment is that whenever technology like this is developed, it's always eventually been used by someone. So it's a real concern. I mean, the point is, this stuff has been going on by our government, and until this came out late last night, John Q. Public, we didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, and again, I think we have to recognize there's value in this technology. One of the ways we caught those marathon bombers in Boston was one of the cameras from Lord and Taylor, of all things, and we've caught people
I don't have a problem
from
with that.
ATM. And so I think we recognize that this technology can be used to keep us safe. But if we have the wrong people in government and we don't have checks and balances, we now are seeing what happens when you put the wrong people in government and you don't have checks and balances.
I personally don't have a problem with cameras in public areas because I think that could be helpful in deterring.
And has been,
but you start tapping into people's personal phone lines, just indiscriminately or just everybody. That's that without a war. I mean, I guess they got the Patriot Act. Does that cover everybody in America listening to all?
It could. It looks like that surveillance court actually allowed for us to collect as much information as a government as we want. Something seriously wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to James in Starkville, Mississippi. How you doing, James?
Great. How you guys?
Okay, buddy. Thanks for calling. Go right ahead.
I was going to say first, if they start this thought police thing, I'm going to be in trouble because sometimes I say to myself, what was I thinking?
Yeah. Hey, that's a good country song right there.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my question is, and I'll hang up and let you respond, though. If they got my phone records, it seems like they'd have to get a warrant from me. And my second question is, why are they doing this? I'm going to hang up and listen.
All right, thank you, James. That's what I'm wondering. Kerby, why would you be – I didn't see in this article from the New York Times a response yet from the Obama administration. Maybe there is one here. I'm sure they've been asked about it this morning, but why would you be collecting phone records from millions of people?
And the argument is that we are trying to trace possible terrorist actions. Everybody agrees that from time to time we need to certainly try to find those terrorist cells and determine that. But now this particular order that came down from this special court, which gave the permission to the National Security Agency, was so broad as to cover basically any Verizon customer right now as the potential that every one of those records could be data mined. Now, let's recognize this is huge records, but they could data mine that. And if you mentioned, for example, if something that was about terrorism, they could go back and find out when you said that in a particular phone call and all of the rest. But here's the problem. It's just so broad. That's why you've got groups like the ACLU. That's why you've got a number of very liberal senators yesterday criticizing this idea because they can see where this goes.
This, according to one civil libertarian here, and this would be an ACLU type person, which we disagree with probably 99% of the time on issues.
But we all agree on this one.
Yeah, but they say this is the broadest surveillance order to ever have been issued.
There you go.
In the history of the United States. And would this, Kerby, be something the Obama administration would